Ben, welcome to the show, brother. How's it going?
Great, Matt. It's good to see you today. Good to be with you. We've been talking about this for a long time, both Michigan natives, and got to spend some time with you and your beloved, your wife, your son King, and that was really nice. And just grateful to be here.
Yeah, it was a great experience. I love that northern Michigan vibe. Maybe one day I gotta get me a place up there. I really haven't been there since I was a lot younger, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was incredible.
It really is. We call it the Caribbean of the North, as you know, and that's for a good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to kick this off, interestingly enough, with kind of a tangent a little bit. You might go a little esoteric with it, but I have a few people I'm recording with in the near future. Dr. Thomas Conwin, which you know is one, who really are speak very highly of Rudolf Steiner. Tell me what you think about Rudolf Steiner and why you think his work's important.
Oh, wow. It's a loaded question, so let me know if I'm going over. But Rudolf Steiner was audiovoyant, clairvoyant. Around like even COVID, he had a quote that was like 3 paragraphs long. You probably read somewhere on socials. It said there'll come a time where there'll come a time, and this is in I think the 1860s. Don't quote me on the date here, but somewhere mid to late 1800s, where he prophesies there will come a time and a place where a vaccine will come to separate the etherical and the material man. And if you read the quote, and anybody listening to this can go on and look it up really easy, it's like lays out what we went through in 2020 and 2021 to a T. Rudolf Steiner created all the Waldorf schools. In my opinion, one of the best ways to educate children. It gives them, we're not hitting them with all the science and the math to mess up their frontal lobe. He penned 100, and it depends on what you look at, but he wrote somewhere between 100 and 140 books. Built the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York, and was just a man unlike many men today. A lot of people say he pioneered biodynamic farming as a part native man that is Anishinaabeg Ojibwe. I would argue that the natives were using the Three Sisters and companion planting long before. So I don't know if I would necessarily stamp that accolade that he is the godfather of biodynamics, but he was definitely likely the greatest pioneer of the 19th, 20th century around a lot of things: consciousness, Ahriman, Lucifer, duality, and spirituality. You know, the Christians say, oh, the devil's so bad, and Lucifer, but really Lucifer is the light side of dark, and Ahriman is the dark side of dark. A sliver of light destroys all darkness, but not a sliver of darkness can destroy all light. Steiner was a very deep thinker. If you've read any of his work, it's not easy. His book, Philosophy of Freedom, I've read like 7 or 8 times over 30 years, and I still feel like I haven't really digested it all. He was a mystic of sorts. I would also add that in the last, he's been gone a long time. So some of his work has been, I don't want to say perverted, but has been modulated in some directions, as does with Christ or any big impact type person. My late grandfather was born in 1898, reared my dad at 50. Dad had me in his 40s, born in 47. So my grandpa is likely the age of like your great grandfather.
Wow.
So grandpa studied with Steiner in Austria, and grandpa was just through and through biodynamic, of the earth farmer. And as you would know, that's how we lost our bicentennial farm, him standing firm on his values. Like, I'm not budging to MDARD, Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. This is, Gregorian technology. They want us to spray our beef and do all these horrendous practices to these living foods. And grandpa and dad stood their ground. And that's a big reason why I do what I do. Outside of a lot of other things like the purpose it brings me, I wouldn't do it just to refill their legacy. But yeah, Steiner was a multifaceted spiritual farming. He connected the cosmos, the full moon, breaking seeds on the full moon. And at that time and space, it was really profound and a cutting edge technology, if you will.
Yeah, that's awesome. I originally heard of Steiner through obviously Paul Chek, which you're obviously trained under many years ago, and we've talked about that. And really, he talks about Steiner every other podcast, it seems like he's
Right.
bringing up some kind of Steiner quote or some kind of teaching, and I've
Sure.
never studied him. Steiner myself, he's on my list to get into at some point, but I've learned a lot about him a little bit through Paul Chek and just, Google searches quick and looking up little things on the quote you talked about with the viral thing, which is definitely seems like he was just ahead of his time. And I just don't really understand, I guess, just modern convenience where we even lost all of that type of farming. That's how like you said, the natives were here already doing the biodynamic stuff, or maybe that wasn't even the terminology. They just know
Yeah,
how
it
to
just
grow
wasn't
food.
called biodynamic. Yep.
Right. So did he
Three
coin the
sisters. So
term?
what they would do real quick is they'd use squash, corn, and beans, and the corn acted like a trellis to the squash and the beans. And it's just basically companion planting that was put in a cute box by Steiner. But he's not like a perpetrator. He took it global.
Mm. Yeah. And then the Waldorf school I've looked into those. Wasn't there even some controversy around their vaccine stance during the COVID point? That was an interesting part about that, right?
Half of them, and don't quote me on half, but a good portion did, a good portion didn't. Steiner said that technology wasn't good. As you and I know, this blue light, I mean, I've got a filter on, but this blue light causes more childhood diabetes than any food does or doesn't. And they put a lot of the kids on iPads. I have several friends that pulled their kids out of the school. Some of the teachers were demanding vaccines, and the leader of their movement was the one that prophesized this whole thing. And he was clairvoyant. He could clearly see ahead of time, and he was definitely had what I would call sidhees or superpowers, to put it kind of straight.
Yeah. Cool. So with your farming background, and I know you talked about it kind of runs deep in with your family, have you basically always looked at farming from this kind of like beyond organic type of biodynamic system, or did you ever grow stuff like kind of the modern way and then realize that was wrong? Like, how has your evolution with your farming in general happened?
It's a great question. Phenomenal question, because it paints a good picture. I was raised in it. I was raised very traditional. Like, I woke up about 5 a.m. I went with my grandfather. No one ever made me do this. My grandpa was my hero, so I wanted to go out there. As a matter of fact, I'd cry and have a fit if grandma made me stay in the house. I had a mile-long trap line. In the mid-'80s, raccoon furs were about $40 a piece. Milk prices were down. We were losing things, so I'd go out and do morning milk with grandpa. Then I'd go off to school, to a Waldorf school. I came back, evening trap line, milk. I was raised in a very old school way for the first 14 years of life. When I was 14, we lost our family farm. As I said, staying firm to our values. My grandpa and dad wouldn't budge. Dad sold his land, trying to save my grandpa's, and we lost it. So that's a big reason why I'm up here. What was your exact question?
Basically, I was like, have you ever grown food like in the regular way and then it evolved?
So when I was 26, I bought a homestead. We lost our farm when I was 14. I kind of explored a lot of different alleys and ways of life. I traveled the globe. And when I got back from all that at 26, I bought 16 acres. And I had a guy from Chicago that was in his 90s that was my neighbor. And he grew with NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. It's just 3 non-carbon bonded minerals. We could go deeper into that later, but you can get NPK poisoning. And I grew a garden for a year or two, and I saw he practiced where you put the black plastic down to starve out the weeds, because the weeds eat the nitrogen, when really those weeds a lot of them are hyper or dynamic accumulators. So they're pulling the phosphorus, the nitrogen, and then 80 some other carbon bonded minerals out of the atmosphere into the soil for the plants. So I did play with it a little bit I don't want to say without success, but I wasn't ever satiated. It was more exploration. I was in my young 20s. Dad and grandpa weren't real heroic at that point because I was in my ego. I was young. Let me see what the other side of the fence is about. As you know, I cultivated some cannabis, and I definitely tried salt-based nutrients. I did it for a couple of runs, and I saw very quickly it's a shortcut. So when you work with compost, like in biodynamics, you're utilizing a process. And within that process, there's some components. If you think of it as a circle, there's excrude. So what that means is there's things in the soil that the plant needs, but the plant can't take them up directly. The way the plant gets them is through, much like a human, first, second, third pass metabolism, a Kelvin-Krebs cycle, and something called fungal hyphae. where the fungi and protenza in the soil break down different organic matters to make nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and various other humics, fulvics. And in that fungal hyphae creates nutrient cycling. That nutrient cycling then feeds the plant. Whereas, if we back up, as I danced in, and I imagine you tried in your days of gardening, NPK is just a salt-based nutrient that you put on the plant and the plant takes up immediately. In the 20s, I don't remember if it was Otto Warburg, but there was a scientist that did a study and said, we can grow all these plants with just 3 minerals, or 3 nutrients as they call them. And that was nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Well, you can, but that doesn't mean we should. That'd be like if I said, well, I can get you to live on, just pasteurized milk and honey. Let's feed you that for the rest of your life. You'd become devoid of a lot of things. Or if you just tried a vegan diet. So back to holism is how, like I like to think. I danced with it a little bit. I know that plants are intelligent. I read The Secret Life of Plants, a book years ago, and I came to understand like Veda Austin's work and Emoto's work, water is sentient, as are plants. Pretty much everything here on Earth has a level of sentience. And oddly, my journey into holistic health and Czech practitioning and orthomolecular medicine, which was my roots in medicine, came from being a plant biologist. I never finished the degree, but I studied for 4 years as a plant biologist. So when you learn everything about a plant, Paul is the one that told me in like 2011, I want to say, he said, Ben, everything with a plant is true with a person, just not vice versa. We are more complex. We have first, second, third metabolites. We have a Kelvin-Krebs cycle. We have all these things. Humans are just far more complex. So if you take your knowledge of plants and apply it to the human, you'll have, and I was very sick at the time, you'll have a big step forward at understanding, overstanding, and understanding how to heal yourself, because the doctors aren't going to do it for you. And so I kind of, at that point, obviously my interest had transmutated from not just farming, but I started seeing life as holism. What's as above, so below, as within, so without, that Hermes corresponding, 8,000 year law of nature. And I started really, Paul gave me some good tidbits. Another guy named Dr. Robert Kassar said, look, you're a farmer, but you're not cooking your food. You're selling your food and eating from down the street at this and this and this. You're eating at Qdoba. He taught me like that when you grow food, when you germinate, propagate, water. This is something we've done for 18 or 20. I won't get into years because history is his story. The colonizers and the victors write it, and it might ruffle some feathers. But we've been here for a long time. And nothing under the sun is new. They like to allude to that. But holism and biodynamics can really tie to not just plants, but humans, that we are biodynamic and we are very different. We're all very bio-individual, like Western medicine or the West likes to paint us all the same, but no 2 thumbprints are the same. So how do they treat us all the same? Plants are very similar.
Yeah, that's awesome. And the NPK fertilizer, I think through my research a little bit too, I think when they do the mining for some of that stuff, they don't filter out a lot of the heavy metals. So I think that's part of the reason why, I had that, you just actually like that post I had about cadmium and the cannabis and hemp being will be the same, is basically because they're hyper accumulators of everything. So if you're,
Yep.
Using these NPK fertilizers that haven't been flushed of the heavy metals and stuff, then, well, they just take those up and then we smoke
You can't
those.
flush the heavy metals.
You
and I both spent some time in cannabis, so we would flush plants, but that's kind of stoner science. You're just flushing all the extra food out so you're not smoking it and tasting the nutrients. But metals, it's even, as you would know, it's hard to flush them out of the body. We have tools, bentonite clay, different things. You would know better at this, but plant's job, as you just said, was what? A hyperaccumulator. Well, what that means is it's to take toxins from the earth, air, ground, and water and store it in the tissue, where most plants sequester it as carbon into the soil. So that is one reason why it is very important. And it's not just cannabis, it's cilantro, it's a lot of herbs. When you're eating an apple or when you're eating food, you're not really you're eating the apple, but what you're eating are the sun's codes that are entangled via photosynthesis because the sun hits the plant. And so it's, in essence, the sun's codes. This is where the circadian people have a lot right. If you eat an apple from Chile and you're in northern Michigan, it's going to tell your suprachiasmatic nucleus via your circadian clock you're in Chile. And if you believe I'm a neutral earther. I won't go there, but you're going to be on the other side of the world. It's going to create problems to the point where I've had good circadian health, good light hygiene. I can notice it, you know?
Yeah, my good
So
buddy Thaddeus has a whole book about that, and he's in Wisconsin, and he goes mostly ketogenic for the fall, and if he flies down to Florida for a couple weeks, then he'll eat whatever like kind of fruits he can find down here, whatever, because he's getting that sunlight, and he's actually in the region, and then when he goes back, he goes straight back to being keto until there's like more harvest in the spring or whatever. So I kind of get lucky because in Florida there is some kind of potatoes or stuff kind of year round.
yep,
There's off season and on season, but we still can get some things that I think other places can't just because of the weather here. And it comes from like a couple hours north or whatever, but still pretty local.
yep. Similar sun codes.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's great. That's your buddy is very similar to me. So I eat in accordance to my geolocation or bioregion. So if I am up here in the winter, I'm eating a lot of meat, a lot of fats, a lot of bone broth, a pretty Weston A Price style diet. Seasonal local. Right now, all the blackberries are in. We're just coming on the heels of blueberry season. I'll try to pick some the last time this afternoon. So I'm heavy in like carbohydrates, fruit, maple. In the winter, maple is one of my carbohydrates. I do eat some potatoes, squash, and the storage foods that we're used to. But like your buddy and like yourself, if I come down and visit you or I spend time in California, Arizona, I'm going to be eating the fruits that are local and seasonal there because that's how I feel best. I feel like it ties to blood sugar. If you're white or you're European, we were only eating fruit a couple months of the year. And what fructose does, and I'm not here to demonize fructose. I'm not a carnivore, but fructose signals to the liver, especially in a European or in a Caucasian human, that we're going into winter. Store fat. Store fat because you're going to have. The thing is, up until the first grocery store didn't open until 1947, the year my father was born. So in less than 100 years, we've come a long way. You can ask the average fifth grader, where's the egg come? They say the store, not the chicken. Yes, and where the milk comes, they say the store, not the cow. But there wasn't grocery stores. So we all had chickens. We all had a garden. We've really deviated from nature. And I mean, I have two simple things with my health clients and my decentralized practice that really break a lot of the diet dogma, the light dogma. And it's just this, that up until 100 years ago, for 18 or 20 million years, we spent 90% of our waking time out of doors. Not while we were sleeping, but our waking time out of doors. Today, not you and I, but the average American spends 90% of their waking time indoors. And most of them are behind blue light, behind a screen, with shitty LED light emitting diodes that have a flicker rate and fluorescent lighting. If we just change that one thing, I personally believe half of Western society would heal. And that's not even getting into the food, the sedentary. If we just got a little more steps, then we'd really potentiate healing. If we got a little more conscious. But if we just change that one thing of 80, like this last weekend, I was at Camp Compost hosting and dropped in with a lot of really good people. And what people said to me, the people that I love the most and that I know the best that hadn't been there, is the weekend was great. All the education was phenomenal. The sound baths, but the best part is that I was barefoot and nearly naked all weekend long with a lot of people eating food like putting this King Ranch, this beautiful ranch, brought a whole truckload of sweet corn and just dumped it at 11 o'clock at night on Saturday night, and all these people are going and putting it in the fire and putting butter and eating the sweet corn, and it's honestly some of the best sweet corn I ever had. But part of that isn't just the corn, it's the people you're around. It's in the Bible, they talk about how important breaking bread is. And whether you believe in the Bible or not, I won't go into that. But I agree. Breaking bread to me is like sleeping with somebody. It's important. I don't break bread with just anyone. It's a sacred, sacred thing. And we've lost touch with that up until the last 80 or 100 years, kind of circling back to that first grocery store. This food, I mean, we would forage and work all year to have this one or two or a month's meal. It was probably never even a whole month. Whereas now we've become so disconnected and we just sit down and eat. A lot of people are driving through the drive-through. They're driving down the road. They're on the phone. They're doing listening to a podcast. There's so much stimuli coming in. They're not assimilating anything. It doesn't matter how good, bad, or indifferent the food is. So back to where we kind of started, I like to draw back and look at the whole, as I call it, holism. And this kind of ties back to where we first began too. And I think it's a beautiful symposium, is that health is not just what you eat, or just your light, or just your cannabinoids, or just your sleep, or any of these one things, when we zoom out as we get to today, it's the whole. It's holism. It's not, or like lately, last few years, I've been really into new German medicine, the emotional, if I hurt my right leg, like I did 2 years ago, I had a really phenomenal Ayurvedic practitioner as a partner. And she said, what aren't you moving forward with in your masculine life? But where I get frustrated with that is they say it's all emotion. And then that omits all physiology and nutrition and supplementation. And so I don't jive with all that. If it's all light, I don't jive with it. Back to holism. Let's look at the whole. Do emotions play a huge part? I can tell you hundreds of clients that got their light, they got the right bio-individual blood type diet, they got their everything right, but they're going through a divorce and they don't heal. And I'm sure you've seen that too. Or, they got everything right, but their minerals were off, so they didn't heal. So when we isolate things, just like with cannabis or with medicine, you go to the doctor and you got a liver problem, they don't look at up or down the line. Like if you go to the car shop and your car's stuttering, they look at the transmission, the clutch, the motor. But Rockefeller and Carnegie really did a number on agriculture. And you were bringing up a little of the NPK. Yes, it's super toxic, and what has ruined all the water on earth, like the springs you and I spoke of around here. I think we spoke of them. My water behind me that comes out of my sink is an artesian well. Most people giggle and Google over it. Oh my golly, you got H3O2 coming out of the faucet. But I'm only about 800 feet elevation. I'm not 8,000 feet. So all springs at this level have been, quite frankly, contaminated. Because what happened is after we beat World War II, after we beat Germany in World War II, we stole all their ammonium nitrate. They were building an atomic bomb to beat us. And when we won that war, we went over there and we stole, I forget if it was 2.4 billion or 2.4 million pounds of ammonium nitrate. Until this day, they burn the ammonium nitrate to make ammonium nitrogen. And that's what they put on organic food. Well, what that does to make and it's billions of pounds a year that they do this with, that in essence, or not in essence, that does create a smoke ring. And this is not greenwashing. This is not the BS, the sun's heating up. That's a solar cycle. This is real. Anybody that doesn't believe this can go on YouTube and just type in broken hydrological cycle. There's like 10 short videos and 100 long videos. I encourage you all to go check them out. Glenn Calkins, Pristine Hydro, taught me about this like 14 years ago, and it changed so much. And he ties into the NPK poisoning to this broken hydrological cycle. So what happens is if you go to Whole Foods and you buy a sweet potato that's organic, it's not compost grown. Compost is cow manure. It's thermophilic compost, which is leaf litter and grass and things broke down to make a nutrient dense, broad spectrum, 83 carbon bonded minerals, if not more, and humic and fulvic, where NPK is just those 3 salt-based non-carbon minerals. So it's all these shortcuts, right? Today, the 2 things killing humans most outside of poor light and all the things we've discussed are comfort and convenience. We are not here to be comfortable and to be in air conditioning all the time and heat, and we are not here to be convenient. We are here to take lessons and to take the harder path. If life is a path of 2 roads like this and a Y, we are meant to take the path of challenges, because what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. That can tie into tough men make tough, easy times make weak men make tough times, and the cycle repeats. Our first, third, second generation wealth, all those things are very symbiotic of each other and very cyclical in nature. So what I'm working to do is to get back to holism and not the tribalism and the cyclical nature that I see society in. Like, oh, we have global warming. But those people have never taken basic time to look up, hey, there's a solar cycle. It runs 20,000 years. The Hindi prophecy said this, that all religions, all reign on supreme is what religion means. All spiritual. The Hindis called it Kali Yuga. The New Age calls it the Aquarian Age. But in that, we're at the end of a 20,000 year cycle where the sun is closer to the earth. Whether the earth is flat and the sun's going like this, or it's a ball and the sun's going like this, I'm a neutral earther. It changes. So if it's pivoting right now, it comes way out like this and then way in every 20,000 years, it's close. So like here in northern Michigan, we're growing all the grapes because northern California, they're burning up, as you and I talked about briefly. And even up here, we've had some serious drought issues and fire issues. Look around the country, things are burning up. I could go deeper into that, but we don't have all day. They need to manage the forest better. That's for sure.
Yeah, I actually have.
Fire is a very important, healthy part of any agriculture or any living system.
Yeah, fire is natural. People don't realize that's kind of part of it. But you also, if you want to maintain, you have to. I'm not an expert, but it does seem like other countries kind of they pay attention and they brush their forests and they do certain things where the fire doesn't
Controlled
get out of
burns.
control. Yeah, it's basically a controlled burn because burn is actually not all bad. It looks like
It's really great.
we see more of it on social media now, which I think so people are like, wow, we just have like unprecedented fires. And it's like, no, there's always fires happening, but you need to actually manage the land. And there's a lot of other issues, obviously, with, regenerative farms, how we can, basically sequester more carbon, more water, more microbes. And we're just kind of have all this runoff and dead land everywhere as well, which probably doesn't help. But as far
Let's
as
pause real quick.
yeah,
Though.
yeah.
If we
Go ahead.
stop the natural cure over 100 years, and that is a forest fire goes in and burns up the disease, the blight, the septoria I'm dealing with here, a good friend at camps, and you just burn everything and it will all be gone. If we just let nature run its course like COVID and we don't try to play God, we let God or universe or divine or source or whatever your choice, I don't want to trigger anyone, but let that happen. I could show you where you went. Empire Bluff, it was one of your favorite places. That whole place burned
Yeah.
up 2 years ago. It's the most green, pristine. It didn't kill the trees. For a year, they're stunted, and within 2 years, they come back more robust and resilient than they've been since the last fire, if they've ever been through one, because we've been putting them out. So here on the farm, I burn the ground. I use biochar. I put a bunch of oak in a barrel. I burn the wood till it's like char. And in a 1-inch piece of biochar, if you were able to break it open, is 1 square mile of surface area. So what that does is it becomes a home for a microbe. These microbes are 250 million years old. So a lot of people in the regenerative agricultural space don't even really understand what it means. They're like, oh, the topsoil's washing away. It is. But that's not the problem. We can make more. The problem are the microbes. These microbes are 250 million years old. At best, humans have been here 18 million. I could argue we've probably only been here 10,000 and that we've been lied to, but I won't go into that. The point is, we don't want to lose the microorganisms, the fungi, the protenza. Biochar and cattle are the fastest way to regenerate Earth. Cow farts aren't changing anything. The rich people are flying around in private jets going, oh, the cows are farting, but they don't honor the solar cycle. They don't know that there's a broken hydrological cycle. That's why we have acid rain. And I'll just take this one step further because this will suit both our fancies and I think a lot of listeners, is all the people that are like, we don't need magnesium, we don't need zinc, supplements. I won't name names. I almost did, but only take liver. Well, liver's amazing. I eat it often. But once you go onto YouTube, as I've instructed these people to do, and some will, most won't, and you see this with your own eyes, and you can conceptualize the broken hydrological cycle, you will see rain on Earth for a millennia has been a 7. It's a neutral in pH. pH means parts hydrogen. So it's been neutral. What that means is when the rain falls from the sky, it's intact. It's got its magnesium. In the rain, there are minerals. Minerals, as you would know, are also metals. There's elemental metals that are very light, like zinc, magnesium, manganese, these things we want. And then they're non-polarized, meaning non-magnetic. And then you have very polarized things like graphene oxide, iron, heavy metals, as people call them. So the slight acidity, where I'm at, it's about a 6.7. Where you're at, it's like a 6.5. In California, it's like a 6.4. And don't quote me, but in those ranges. Neutral's a 7. So that slight acidity in the rain, due to them burning and various other reasons, CO2 emissions, but the big ones, the ring around the Earth is from burning the ammonium chloride to make nitrogen, has created a slight smoke ring. That in turn has created slightly acidic rain. So what happens is when the rain falls, it's polar charged with a little bit of a negative or positive ion charge. So it pushes out those light elemental minerals or metals like magnesium, manganese, zinc, those things we want that we now need to supplement. This will help you and help me because it will teach people that supplements aren't the enemy, especially if they're rooted in integrity. Are some of them junk? 80% are. Yes, they come from China. They're full of excipients and binders and garbage, but that doesn't mean we don't need minerals. And this is the reason why. That stuff gets pushed out of the rain, and what we don't want in excess gets pulled in. So if you're in the Midwest or throughout America, you can go look at your neighbor's house. It's white where the sprinkler runs and hits the house and it's all orange. That's why it's orange. It's heavy iron and graphene oxide in the water staining the siding. It literally rusts our inside. Not quite rust, but it creates calcification, fibrin, and all sorts of states of disease, as you would know. So it really is holism: the food, the health, the whole big picture.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's another topic that I haven't really touched on the show is acid rain. So I'm glad you touched on it because I know plenty of people who are just like hiking, getting, driving an hour out of their way for spring water. But I'm like, well, if you haven't really tested that spring water, I'm not 100% sure that
Thank you.
it's probably better than tap water, but maybe not because of the acid rain specifically. That's how these heavy metals even get into the environment, like these coal burning plants, especially China, where they don't use scrubbers and they don't have any
Yep.
like environmental regulations. They're like a big culprit, and it just pumps into the sky, goes down into the water, and that's why you can't even eat a salmon anymore without it being full of parasites and heavy metals.
And then all the shit they're spraying in the sky. We all know, and you might not you, Matt, but people might not. What goes up must come down.
Yeah.
So people talk about, if you're into the level of health we are, I don't eat a lot of tuna. I don't eat any fish, but that's a whole nother story. Jack Cruz wouldn't like to hear that. But tuna is 80 years old. So it's had 80 years to bioaccumulate all the shit they spray, all the things from the factories, the ring around the planet from making all the organic nitrogen. And where does that go? 70% of the earth is an ocean. So if I eat fish, it would be sardine, mackerel, a small fish that doesn't have the time to bioaccumulate 80 years in the water to accumulate all that mercury and iron and all those heavy metals that we don't necessarily want.
Yeah, I totally agree. So people are really stuck on the spring water, but I think you still need a good filter for your drinking water. Maybe if you drink spring water here and there.
Spring above 8,500 feet is proven safe. But that means you got to be in Colorado, Utah. We're not getting in Michigan, Florida, SoCal, mountain spring water. Look at the total dissolved solids. It's like north of 300. You're going to calcify and fiber in your body. Natural spring water should not be 350 parts per million. Or really high TDS, total dissolved solids.
Yeah. I totally agree. I don't trust it. I have a good filter. I recommend everybody, if you can't get a whole house filter, at least get the drinking water under control and maybe get a shower filter. That's what I do because I don't own this condo, so I don't want to hook up a $3,000 whole home unit. But I have pristine hydro on the shower, which I have on all three of the bathroom showers here, and I have the RIP to Gary Greenfield, but I have his new system. It's like a $1,500 system, but he has the copper structured unit on the end. It remineralizes the water. It's pretty good. I like the Mito Life one. Looked really good. 7-stage filter. I had to measure. It wouldn't fit under my sink because of the garbage disposal. So I had to just go with the Matt for
years. I was already invested. I'll take it a step further. I have an artesian well. Out of my faucet, right behind me comes H3O2. But as we just shared and discussed, I know it's contaminated. I know that it's slightly acidic. I know that it's pushed out the things I need and want and pulled in things I don't. So I on my shower have a Sante, about an $800 triple head filter. I have a 9-stage reverse osmosis, and I use the artesian spring for the plants, for washing like fruit, because it's clean. It's just not ideal in a mineral complex and acid complex. And the pH acid alkaline balance in the human body is vitally important. That's something I'd like to touch on real quick as we live on the cusp, or what I believe is the end of a cusp, what I call the alkaline era. A guy I got to know through Matt Blackburn, for those wondering, is Adam. And Adam taught us all acidify or die. And I knew a lot about this prior to Adam, studying with other legends. But
Adam Bergstrom?
Yes.
Okay, I follow him.
Our gut is the most acidic gut of any mammal on Earth. At 12 years ago, I was a vegetarian for spiritual reasons. I have O positive Aboriginal blood. It didn't work. But beyond that, our gut is a 1.5 pH. Our blood is 7.365. The way you can remember that, there's 7 days a week. There's 365 days of the year. So look at the difference there. 7.365, 1.5. If you're drinking alkaline water that's a 9, the first thing your body has to do is bring that water to your body's temperature. Most people are drinking it at 35 degrees right out of a refrigerator. No bueno. And on top of that, then your body has to take down that 9 all the way to a 1.5. And often they're eating a steak or things with it that are hard to digest without proper hydrochloric stomach acid. So I'm not into the alkalinity. the body is so intelligent that a big reason for osteoporosis is EMFs, because it shuts down the calcium ion channels or retards them. People say shuts down. It doesn't, because we'd all be dead. It retards or slows them. And there's a lot of facets to health that are grossly misunderstood. To sell products, to keep people in the dark, for many reasons.
Yeah, beautifully said. I do want to shift gears here. Hopefully everyone understands that you are a wealth of knowledge at this point, but I really think that I haven't met anyone at least who understands the, hemp, CBD, cannabinoid. You like to use the word cannabinoid. You don't like CBD in general. I don't know anybody.
Just real quick, so people know, it's not that I don't like CBD. It's an acronym for cannabidiol. Cannabidiol is one isolated compound out of 100, north of 100 cannabinoids. Nothing I sell or make has just CBD, because cannabinoids work in an entourage effect with synergy, meaning the more of them that can play together in you, the better they work. So what I make is a full spectrum product that depending on how well I'm paid or depending on the product, I will pull research and spike certain markers of cannabidiol or cannabidiol, known as the stem cell cannabinoid, CBG. Maybe they need more THC because they need to eat or sleep. So I use a full spectrum oil, and then I ramp certain point or markers with isolated compounds to achieve a net outcome.
Yeah. And so to get started off, what is the actual benefits of that full spectrum in comparison to just CBD isolate? Because when I take CBD isolates, I get a little bit of a calming effect if I did a high enough dose, and it's fine. Maybe helps with a little bit of sleep or, mellow you out after a long day. But
inflammation.
Yeah, it's definitely got some level of, you can tell that you took it. It's, you take 200-300
in the
milligrams.
proper dose.
Yeah, I think like 200 or 300 milligrams. Like I've had,
that's
I had
a big
the future.
One. Most products, not to overspeak it, just real quick, this is the perfect place, is most products are 15 to 30 milligrams a dose. And then I have people come to me, CBD doesn't work. Well, number one, I don't sell CBD. Number two, the titration of dose is very important. I would argue if it's just cannabidiol or even CBD and CBG together, you need it north of 200 milligrams to have any non-placebo effect. And there's many studies that I can prove this. If people are curious, they can go on my website and look at your dose of optimum wellness. Just hit the tab up top. And I've got 20 years of my research with citations attached, all your non-psychoactive cannabinoids, and they can dive deep there. And anything, I'd be also happy to answer any pertinent things here around cannabinoids, because I know that's one big heart reason of our dialogue today.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, it froze out a little bit there, so I kind of didn't hear the tail end of it, but I know either way. I've promoted some products. Actually, I still like the Future guys, Dustin and Future 4200, Future Compounds. They're cool. I think that CBD is cool also if you have to do drug tests for jobs and stuff like that.
Dustin, Future 4200's a dear friend, and what he does is no one else on earth. He's like myself. He was a pioneer in open source. I've known Dustin 14 years, and he's a big reason why everything I do is open source. All my health information, anything you guys hear about today, anyone listening to this can go onto my website and hit the button, open source knowledge, and it's free. I'm not trying to sell you a course. I'm not trying to rope you in. I eat real good just as I am. Open source is the future, and I love Dustin. What they're doing is amazing. I don't want to detract. Isolated compounds work great. The problem is when you go and get them at a gas station or at a cannabis store or 9 out of 10 health stores, the titration of dose is 15, 20, 30 milligrams. I don't care if it's CBD, CBG, and CBN. The dose is not titrated high enough. Now, Dustin broke the whole game in a good way and offers these humongous doses in a whole jug. And of course, when you get the dose up to 500 milligrams, you're going to have a titration dose effect. What I would say in that case, and he'll agree with me, is if you were to add a little full spec with it, it would just potentiate things all the more. And as you would know, Matt, because we talked about this personally, I've had opportunities to make $50, $100 million likely, and I've turned them down because quality and quantity only coexist to a certain point. At one point in growth, either quality goes away or quantity goes away. And I'm not somebody that's willing to compromise in something I take so much pride in. And other things, maybe. but I am a true qualitarian. I'm not here to like cut corners in a world where everybody's cutting corners and here to make a net income. I'm here to make a net impact, because in that net impact comes my net income. Where I live, it's not just what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
And the
No,
more I learn, because I may seem like I know a lot, the more I learn, I'd like to make this clear, the less I truly know. I have more to unlearn than I do to learn at 4.5 decades on Earth.
yeah, I think we're all kind of revolving into that space where you're like, damn, I listened to somebody. I'm like, I guess maybe I don't know shit. But yeah, and everything is grown right on your farm, or at least most of what you sell is grown right on the farm, all
Everything.
biodynamic, right?
Everything I sell is produced. It's not only produced, it's bred. It's 30 years of working inline breeding, Phaeophilia 1, Phaeophilia 2 generations. It's grown, germinated, harvested, extracted, bottled, labeled, all by me. I honestly don't know of another person on earth that does such a thing, where you can call me up and say, my son has Asperger's savant. He's also got cancer. I want you to compound something for his Asperger's. I want to put his cancer in remission. And I'm the guy that will, depending on how well you pay me, I used to do a lot of PubMed. The more I get into medicine and the more I unlearn, because, all the medical schools, Cambridge, Loyola, Berkeley, all teach us that PubMed is the god of medicine. But if we all back up and zoom out a little, let's be real logical. All those studies are done under only blue light in a sterile environment. You've been here on my farm. What, even inside this home, and it's pretty nice, is sterile and just blue? Nothing. What outside is sterile and just blue? Nothing. So I take the PubMed with a grain of salt. I still use it because there's a lot of good science there. But yeah, I'm the only one I know of that you can call and say, hey, this is what I'm dealing with. I've got 30 years experience. I work with doctors, but mainly with individuals. I've got a pretty good clientele that I've known for a long time. 80% of my business is a repeat business. Yeah, I take a lot of pride in helping people. As do
Yeah,
you,
that's
I know.
that's the other part that I think's really cool, and I think a few people I sent to you thought was cool is that you'll actually make unique blends if somebody is actually like, I just get your nighttime blend and your daytime
Yep.
blend and I'm fine. But
And they're great.
yeah,
They're
they're
great.
the best I've ever had. I probably will never quit
80% of
using
my
them.
sales is that nighttime bottle.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, I've been taking
75
CBD.
7,500 milligrams. That's 7.5 grams of cannabinoids in that little bottle. If you were to fill the bottle with the cannabinoids, it's like this much cannabinoids and this much MTC. Where most guys
Mhm.
give you a little drop in the bottom and they fill it all up with MTC. It costs them 80 cents to make and they charge you a hundo. Those
Yeah,
bottles
no.
cost me $80 to make and I sell them for just north of $100.
Wow. I didn't realize
Right.
that's actually remarkable.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it cost
And
you that
that's
much to
another
make.
reason where I go back to quality and quantity can only code. Somebody could say to me, I want 100,000 bottles. Well, it's a challenge because to extract, to do it all. So I would rather, I'm not here to wake the sleeping sheep. I learned this years ago. I'm here for the sleeping lions. I'm not here to spoon feed people and convince them that this way might work. I'm here for the people that come to me and say, Ben, I heard about you from Matt, or you helped this person or that person. Everything I do is organic. I do no advertising, no word of mouth. As we've talked about, I'm not here to make money. I'm here to make an impact. I'm here for time freedom, like Tim Ferriss teaches in the 4-Hour Work Week. Because time
Yeah.
freedom is the real rich. Food sovereignty is the real rich. Connection is the real rich. You and I dropped in and went to the cherry orchard with your beautiful new son I hadn't met and your wife. That to me is rich.
Yeah, that was beautiful. And the cherry farm was great. That was the best cherries I've ever had. We handpicked them out
The
there in an
only
organic
organic
spot.
cherry farm out of 1,103 counties in all of northern Michigan.
Yeah, no,
I'm so honored
that
we
was
got to
awesome.
go.
I was eating on those cherries for like 2 weeks. They were
Yeah,
incredible.
I killed them in like 3 days, but we won't
Yeah, I
talk
just
about
kept
that.
snacking on them each day and letting the fam get. I mean, I got a huge bag, but it was awesome. Um, Yeah, so people can get obviously custom blends, whatever they're dealing with. There's a daytime formula, which I wanted to touch on this a little bit because I thought this was interesting because obviously I used to try daytime CBD, would make me a little sleepy, things like that. And you kind of were like, hey, honestly, when you up the dose, you actually will get less groggy in the daytime formula. And you said everybody's kind of got a different dose, so play around with it between, I don't know, 60 or 100 milligrams or whatever. I can't remember exactly what you told me.
You can even go up to 250.
Yeah, I bumped it up to I think to like a little over 100, and I really didn't feel groggy when I would take these other products. It'd be 10, 20 milligrams, just trying to get a little edge off in the daytime. I'd get a little sleepy or a little
Me
slow.
too.
And so that was interesting. So explain what's the mechanism happening there where the higher dose makes you less groggy.
What it is, and this is a bit of postulation, because we're all so different. I could tell you I don't like to postulate. Like I said, the more I learn, the less I truly know. And so let's back up just for 1 second. We all have an endocannabinoid system, and none of us have the same anything, right? No two thumbprints, going back to that. Well, none of us have the same metabolism, same anything. So we all have different endocannabinoid deficiencies. So if we back up a little bit, and this might take a minute, I think we have just a moment because this will give people a lot of context. Cannabinoids were not made illegal. Specifically, cannabis, marijuana was a bigoted term to be derogatory towards black jazz musicians. They said black jazz musicians are raping white women. Or reefer madness. That was a carrot they held out front and dangled like this. The real threat to the Gestapo government, I say that, was that hemp has the strongest tensile, like a rope, the strongest tensile strength of anything on earth. DuPont would not exist today. The whole first car that Henry Ford was built out of hemp. Rockefeller and them guys were like, no, we can't do that. So cannabis was not illegal because people were getting high. We really didn't use it that much. The natives, in certain settings as medicine, but we weren't all like getting wasted and smoking weed. They made it illegal because as animal fodder, meaning the feed of an animal, hemp grows 15 times faster than alfalfa, and it literally has 20 times more protein, not 20%. So think now, let's zoom out and think about commodities, soy, corn. When I go up and I buy grain for my chickens, they don't get much grain, but they do get some non-corn, non-soy, good options. It works on a commodity. Every week it goes from 8 to 8.15 to 8.12. It's a commodity. They couldn't have made those commodities if we could all just grown hemp in our backyard, fed our cows, then got the milk. You wouldn't have gone to the store. You wouldn't have gone to Joe Blow to buy your grain. You wouldn't have gone to the doctor because you wouldn't have needed it. And I could even take it further into like the EMFs and how 80% of modern disease didn't even exist on Earth until 1880 when we electrified the Earth. There was no influenza. There was no diabetes. Doctors that practiced medicine for 70 years would see one case of diabetes, and it'd be a guy thinner than me. And the way they healed it was with the sugar cube. So what I see is a lot of like broken metabolisms, and it comes from back to people not living in their holism. As far as CBD and CBG, why do they work? It really comes down to a higher dose. When you give the body 15 or 20 milligrams and the body's craving something, this is kind of like glyphosate. One reason glyphosate's so bad is it mimics glycine. I imagine you know glycine. It's the most important amino acid in our body. Well, most toxins the body does not have an affinity for, but glyphosate, the way it was made, mimics glycine. So the body has an affinity. So it's like, give it to me. Well, picture that same setting. If you take 15 milligrams of CBD and CBG, cannabidiol and cannabidiol. Cannabidiol is amazing. It's a stem cell cannabinoid, meaning it can be birthed into any of the cannabinoids. What it does is it teases those deficient cannabinoids within the ECS, the endocannabinoid system, and it gives them a little taste. It's like if you give a crackhead half a hit, he's going to be wanting more. So you feel kind of drowsy and then just kind of oof. But if you hit the system with 100 or 200 milligrams and you satiate those cannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2, throughout the body, well, what happens when you're satiated by love or by food or by anything? You feel good. You feel whole, back to holism. You feel complete. And how does that make you feel? Vibrant, robust, resilient, not like, oh, I'm going to take a nap. I want a coffee. Yeah. You're ready to go. Let's go. So that's the easiest way I can explain it. We could get into some more biochemistry. I think it'd be over a lot of heads. It'd take us some time. But it really boils down to people's deficiencies. They've had a prohibition on these cannabinoids for 130 years. The way we got these cannabinoids into our system for the last thousands of years was not often through smoking. It was through eating animals that ate the cannabinoids. So kind of like, people, some of the mineral people are like, well, you just take this mineral to get this and this to get that. Well, 200 years ago, sure. But the soil's depleted. It's like this. I talked to you a bit about minerals. People, I didn't even know. So I took Shilajit for 20 years. I wasn't absorbing it. If there isn't diatoms are a type of silica that's in the soil. Well, guess what? Due to all the soil washing into the ocean, the microbes not being present as they should, the silica's almost gone. So it's like everything. There's so many layers here that we really need to zoom out and realize not much of us know anything. And that leads to one of the most important parts, I believe, of this conversation. When we pretend we know everything, like modern medicine, or like the gurus in health that sell the programs and won't ever evolve out of their biology of belief, or anyone that is like rigid, when you know everything, how much can you learn? Nothing. When you got it all figured out, though, guess what? It's real good at selling drugs and making money. So if you say, oh, our whole body works on a sodium potassium pump that Dr. Tom Cohen has proven and taught me over 10 years doesn't even exist in the body, and you get people into the cholesterol myth and all that, and you get them so confused and dumbed down, and you get them endocannabinoid deficient and calcified and on SS, I mean, at that point, they're just bambling in the wind.
Yeah, so that's another. You actually touched on a point that I wanted to bring up is people are like, well, we didn't always have these tinctures, or maybe we smoked here and there, but the harvest is. But there was a lot of hemp just growing until we kind of went into the outlawing part
Naturally.
of it. And you would just get it through eggs or meat or animals that were just eating the hemp like they would eat grass or goats or milk.
In an endogenous form, meaning within, exogenous without.
And so does it work the same, as if an animal is like obviously eating a high hemp diet, then the CBD just remains intact and we get it in through the animal fats or the foods? It's just like
that? Precisely. It gathers in the adipose tissue, which is fat. We've spoke a bit about this, so I don't eat a lot of chicken or pork unless I raise it and it's a heritage hog or the right chicken that I raise, because they're monogastric animals. So anything they eat gets stored in their adipose tissue, whereas a cow is a ruminant. Not many know this. I want to share just a little caveat that I think you'll find fascinating. Have you ever seen a bull? They're like 1,200 pounds. They're intimidating. I've been around them my whole life. They run at you, and it's scary. Think how big and muscular they are. When I was a vegetarian, I was never a vegan. I was a lacto-vegetarian. They'd say, oh, well, how does a cow can gain so much muscle from plants? It's a total lie. It's not even a misnomer. It's a lie. And I'll tell you why. A cow has 7 ruminants. It's kind of like a stomach, but it's not. So they eat the hay comes up here, and the hay goes to here, or the grass, or even the corn. And this will teach you why the corn can be a problem amongst many other reasons, but we won't go there. And it goes through these ruminants. By the end of these ruminants, it becomes all bacteria, because what happens when you put plant, nitrogen and carbon, which is a plant, with a bunch of heat, enzymes, protease, amylase, lipase, all these enzymes that are in our guts and in cows' guts, what happens? Fermentation. So all that grass ferments, and the byproduct is bacteria. What is bacteria? Pure protein. So that is how the bull is 1,200 pounds of muscle and has a 12-inch penis, because they're getting all that bacteria from all those ruminants. But if you or I go and eat the whole field out back of rye and hay, we're going to die before we gain any muscle, because we don't have a ruminant to turn that plant matter into bacteria. If that helps you. It's huge. Yeah. People are like, oh, well, how do cows, I know a lot of vegans today that are like, well, cows eat grass and live on plants, so can you. And it's like, no, you're not a cow. And people that want to know this, go on Google and just look up the schematics of the digestive tract of a wolf, a human, and a cow. You will see a wolf and a human are almost identical. A cow and a human are not even remotely the same. Dr. Robert Cassar showed me that when I was plant-based and I was having a hard time coming back off the plank of, the belief around it. And then I came right back to the farm name, the Sacred Circle. And Grandpa always said, we eat the cow eats the grass. The grass eats the microbe, creates fungal hyphae. The fungal hyphae creates nutrient cycling. Then it makes the grass. The cow eats the grass. We eat the grass. We go back to humans. We go back to earth. And it's literally a sacred circle of life. So as a vegetarian, you're harming that sacred circle of life more than you're helping it. Because the reason the cow, and I'd like to back up and say we probably wouldn't eat cows. India had it right. They're sacred. They make the milk, the butter, the ghee. We were eating bison. But to kill the natives, which they couldn't do, they killed 800 million bison, ran them off cliffs at 100,000 at a time. So that gives a little context to we live in such an illusionary time that it's not the cow, it's the how. And, we could go 100 ways here. I'll let you.
Yeah, no, I agree. If I could eat only bison, I would. Shit's expensive, though. It's like every time I try. It's super lean. It tastes better.
I like to add tallow and butter.
Yeah. I like the flavor of it even better than cattle, but it's like sometimes the ribeye is like $40 a pound at the farm that
And
they're coming from
the sad
Colorado.
part is there would be like there's white-tailed deer here. There would be bison throughout this country that everyone could just eat, but we decimated them all. So yeah, and another neat thing for people to know, if you're out traveling and you're like Matt and I and you want grass-fed beef and you can't find it, there is a federal native treaty that the only thing you can feed a bison is hay or grass. You cannot give them vaccines or antibiotics. So bison, like when I was in the van traveling to 40 states, is always, if I'm going into a Trader Joe's, which I never go into, is always a safe bet because of that native treaty. I mean, and when I say safe, semi-safe. I don't trust the government. I don't trust the regulatory agencies, but you're ruling on the side of caution when you eat bison.
Yeah, I think you're even telling me they like try to force everybody to spray the beef that they grow up in Michigan. It's the
Anywhere.
farming stuff is
So
crazy.
us farmers that raise our cattle on grass and finish them on alfalfa, or someone like me that raises them on alfalfa and hemp and finishes them on hemp. When you butcher the animal, there's a few factors that are really broken. A, the animal is a sentient, sacred animal. It's been on my sacred land its whole life. Well, MDARD, or whichever state you're in, the agricultural department forces you to load the cow in a trailer. So it's been its whole life like roaming the land, sacred, no one disturbs it, in a happy, healthy home, if you will. And we load it into a metal trailer that's loud. We get it in a high state of cortisol and adrenaline, and we take it off to a butcher shop and kill it inhumanely. Then we butcher it and we spray the whole cow. And this, when I say we, not me, but the common farmer throughout our country is forced to spray, or butcher to be more appropriate in this part of the setting, spray that beef with citric acid, mold-derived citric acid, to keep the meat red. Because everything's about shelf life, and if the meat browns in the case, they might have to freeze it, and if it freezes and it's brown, then they can't resell it. Well, that's a Gargarian, just bullshit technology that I've always refused to participate with. And thank goodness we're in a place and time in life that we can operate in a private sector known as a PMA. And then you can say, hey, Ben, I trust your practices. Not only do I trust them, you've explained why they're important, and I understand why. So I want to join your cooperative, and then I know my meat isn't vaccinated. I wouldn't take the vaccine. I know they're going to push it on the animals because they have billions of dollars wrapped up in it, and people can have confidence in the meat that they eat. Furthermore, as a farmer, it makes my life a lot easier, because just put yourself in my shoes. Do you want to go through, you know how I live, Matt. Do you want to do everything I do and give up all the time freedom to produce the best, to go and spray it with citric acid and to load that animal in a trailer? So backing up, people talk about corn-fed beef. I would rather have a corn-fed cow that was killed proper on the land and butchered on the land than I would a grass-fed cow that was done, like I said, which they force farmers to do, loaded in a trailer, into a stanchion, into a really stressful environment, and then killed in that high state of cortisol. If you've ever hunted deer, anyone listening to this, and you shot a deer and it ran a mile into the swamp, and the deer was really gamey, and your grandma might have soaked it in milk or kefir, that's why she did that, because the meat was full of adrenaline. It's actually poisonous. We were not meant to eat it like that. So here, and I don't have cattle just yet, as you know, because I just moved to this farm 18, 20 months ago. We're getting the fence up. But our practice will be, the animal will be on the land, it will be born on the land, fed on the land, free-ranged on the land, and it will be dispatched, not knowing it was dispatched in the most humane way possible behind the ear. It won't even know. And then it will be dry aged, where you hang the meat in a cool environment. None of that happens. They've omitted it all. So, and then you could even get into the worst side of K-fed farming, and that was part of why I danced in vegetarianism. I saw that Game Changer documentary back about 10 years ago. They spent billions of dollars. If they could hoodwink someone like me that was raised in this, there's an agenda.
No, I ate meat my whole life. I wasn't a farmer, but my family's from West Virginia, and every time we went down there, all the food, they never went to Walmart or whatever. It was just like some shit that they got from up the street and from a friend. I mean, they were like 80, 90 years old. They didn't care about Walmart. We would go in there and get some cereal and stuff because we were used to it. But all the food they prepared 3 meals a day were from scratch from there. And it's interesting. You got me thinking about my farmer here that I buy my half a cow from. I'm like, I wonder if he has to spray it with citric acid. He might just be, even though there's no vaccines and he's grass fed, he might
probably be forced to.
Might be given into that.
You might. No, you're a lot like me, Matt, and you support farmers like me at a very high level. If anyone's getting around it, it would be your guy, or people like these high-end regenerative guys that aren't vaccinating. And like, I don't know about White Oak pastors. I should look them up to see, like, they seem to be a great outfit. I hear such good things. I don't know if they dispatch on site, but that's what needs to happen is the
Yeah, I
cow
think they
needs to
do.
be dispatched.
I've heard him on podcasts. I think he
Good.
got his own whole facility. He spent a lot of money on it.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but the best things. And as I said, quality and quantity only coexist. I really respect those guys because if they can get that quality and quantity, the thing is, I wasn't meant to produce for you in Florida. When you come here to visit, I'll always feed you, as you know.
Yeah.
But we, like the Amish, you know how much I align with them. I met one this weekend that offered to give me a $5,000 registered brown Swiss cow that I can't even buy in my state. I'd have to find the time to drive halfway to you in Virginia and haul it all the way back. And we both know I don't have that time. But our network, back to his what? Our net worth. The Amish get it, they're simple living and high thinking. They don't vaccinate anything. They have big families. So I really like to align with them. It comes down to forget the ballot box. Whether you're a Trumper or a Bidener or you're blue or red, it goes back to Rome and the Colosseum. Keep them fighting amongst each other so they don't go up the ladder to make real change. Vote with your money. Don't complain. If you go and see a lacto-fermented sauerkraut instead of vinegar and it's $12 instead of $8, buy it because you're supporting that company to keep doing what they're doing. If you like White Oak pastors and their beef is a little more, understand when you buy from them, you're supporting what they're doing and you're bringing more of it. Another thing I don't like to see is people say, well, I don't like the way farming is. And they buy the cheapest eggs, the cheapest meat. Well, you're paying to keep what you don't like alive.
I agree. I've been saying that forever. I spend way more money at my local farmer's market and for my meat. And I don't care if I have to be the renegade who I want to give my money to them because the overall view of it is, later down the line, White Oaks Pasture today, he's even said it before. He's like, I shouldn't be shipping my food everywhere. There should just be more farms like this. Support your local guy. I'll ship it to you if you want to because I got it. But, support your local guy. And so that more of these farms pop up. And the guy by me who does all my A2 milk, I'm super blessed. He's a couple hours north, but he's like, all of his kids go and intern with Joel Salatin. He does everything regenerative. And I get a lot of even sprouted granolas and things from him and raw honey. Like they're great A2 milk. And then they do even sell some Amish stuff from a different farm. They got a couple farms they work with that are all regenerative and aligned. So super cool spot. But I give them more money because I want more farms to exist like this.
Two things within that. Within that, there's a trickle-down effect. So you're raising king, right? Those people aren't far away. That money is going to trickle back down into your son's life and people around you. Whereas when you buy from Amazon, that goes to Bezos' pockets, to his islands, or wherever, to his employees. So A, there's a trickle-down effect. That's not even the big part. B, what there is that's very important is it makes more small. We're not meant to produce for the whole world. What they've done is there's like 3 major meat packing companies in the country. And that's why during COVID, meat went up so much. They pulled some things and modulated, and then we know how many chickens they've killed and under an illusionary bird flu. So one point I missed earlier that I'd like to drive is that you've mentioned, hey, I'd like to do what you're doing one day, Ben, potentially. Maybe not on that scale, or maybe we could work together. Well, that's what we all need to do. And that brings me back to why I brought up the Amish. They don't try to do it all. My buddy Moses, all he does is cut wood. If you go to him and say, I want you to raise my cow, he's going to say, no, I'm good at cutting wood and I'm going to cut wood. Just like if I came to you and said, I want you to grow this ganja, you'd say, no, I do minerals and I do podcasts and I do this and I'm a ceremony guy. We stay in our lane. Well, what they did when they created a conglomerate is they cut out all the small farms. And that's why MDARD and these overreaching bureaucracy units exist, is to keep these big conglomerates in play doing really shitty products so they can umbrella the shitty products to all the people. Whereas and this is where I believe, I don't want to say the most important because there's so many important facets in how we live and supporting each other and regeneration and regenerative farmers and voting with their money. But if more people, or as more people begin to do this, guess what? There'll be more small farms. And before you know it, there won't just be me and your boy producing without citric acid. If he is, there'll be within a year, 10 and then 20. And then it'll just, and next thing you know, there's a bunch of small farms doing good work. Because again, quality and quantity only coexist to a certain point. And it hits a point where it can't coexist. So what you do is you create more small farms rather than creating a bigger shit farm.
I agree. And I think it's actually the most important as far as like decentralization of like people, like you said, politicize
Bottom up rather
everything.
than top
They
down.
argue about, complain about corporate capture and all this, crony capitalism and all this. Well, what's the main thing that you spend money on every single day? It's food.
Yes.
Buy a damn bookshelf off Amazon. No one really cares. You buy it one time. Whatever. It's convenient and it's easy. What do you have to put in your body every single day? What would make the biggest dent in that system? It would be you're buying your food locally, which also I
Yep.
would argue has the light frequencies that you need to maintain good health. Also forces you to change your diet seasonally, which is good for the gut microbiome and plenty other things. There's so much that goes into it,
And then
but
the networking, the
yeah,
connection.
the
Would we even
connection.
know each other in reality if we weren't both into these things and we didn't have these interests? So there's a lot of secondary, what I call precipitated value, where you meet like-minded people. Like Alex Zeck right now is doing this really cool way forward. And I'm not into all the movements and the pay me for this and that, but I really like what he's doing because he's bringing together all these people and saying, hey, look at Ben up here is a regenerative farmer. And if you're in Northern Michigan, support him. And he's singing praise of like-minded Aiken people so we can create more small farmers, more small healers. Because like I'm a healer, you're a healer. If you came to me with 100,000 people, I couldn't help them. So what we want to do in an open source, decentralized world is create more Aiken, more like-mindedness. And the way we do that is voting with our money, networking, and not like proprietarism and like, oh, it's all mine. I can't tell you about it. It's behind this paywall, or you got to spray it with that. No, those are all corporatism. Capitalism is very healthy. People today are a little confused. Dustin, Future 40, he busts people's balls about this all the time, and I love it. Capitalism is great. It's corporatism that's really, it's that umbrella system.
Yeah.
And the best way to stop that is to not even pay attention. Just quit spending money with them and march to the beat of your own drum down yonder. Meet a good grass-fed farmer. And if you don't know one, reach out to someone like Matt or I, and we'll put you on.
Yeah, eatwild.com's good. You can go to the Weston A. Price. That's how I found a lot of these farms. They're online. I live in the middle of the city, but you can go on places like Eat Wild and the Weston A. Price raw milk finder or whatever. And I find that stuff for people. Found a raw milk, good Amish farm, everything for my people back in Flint. They just got to go meet them in Grand Blanc. It's 10, 15. It's a little drop off, but I don't know if it's all regenerative and whatever, but it's a local farmer doing it right and getting
Doesn't
good
matter.
sourdough.
Do the best you can till you know better. So people don't get
Right.
caught up like Matt and I. We've been doing this years. I've been doing it decades. If you can't get it regenerative, just do the best you can, local and seasonal. Do the
Yeah.
best you can, until you know better. And another little caveat, I just had it. Give me just a second. Is beyond the nutrition are the connections and that trickle down effect that I spoke of. When you're buying the meat from the huge 3 packers, that money is never coming back around. It's not making any change. It's not making a network. You're getting nothing in return but some devoid nutrients. Whereas when you support the farmer, you're not just supporting the farmer, you're supporting yourself, your family, your future, and the bigger picture to bring more of things that we feel are relevant and important.
Yeah. Well, Ben, I have another client popping up over here at the house. Got to run some scans on. I could talk to you for 10 hours. We'll have to circle back around and brainstorm and do this again one day. But before we jump off of here, tell everybody where they can go get some cannabinoids, check out your farm if they're in Northern Michigan, whatever your website, whatever you want to plug.
Yeah, I'm in Northern Michigan. I am biodynamicben.com or sacredcircle.farm. My Instagram handle's the same, at biodynamicben or at sacredcircle.farm. I work one-on-one with people. If you've been to 10 doctors and a bunch of naturopaths, generally getting too much input, call me and I'll help set you straight. I'd be happy to help anyone. And most importantly, I'm really grateful to connect here. It flew by, Matt. We'll drop in again. It was really good to see you and your family. Anybody that's listening to this, as you would know, Matt, I'm a pretty open source guy. Reach out to me. Be reasonable. I'm a busy man. I wear a lot of hats, as you know. But I'm here to help. I'm here to be a service. I'm here to make not just a net income, but a net impact.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ben. Until next time. Stick around while I
Matt,
close out the
thank you a
show.
lot. Have a great day, brother.
You too.
Appreciate you so.